presentation will highlight the snapshots of Indian electric vehicle ecosystem policy, frameworks, and investment. To deliver the keynote presentation, please help me welcoming on the stage the Assistant Vice President, Strategy and Policy, Automotive and Electric Vehicles, Invest India, Mr. Dev Ashish Aneja. He is the sector head for EVs and batteries at Invest India. Prior to this role, Dev has been working across business roles in the Indian automotive industry for over 12 years. Having worked across corporate, consulting and government roles, he has executed multiple projects around M&A, both buy and sell side, business strategy and policy advocacy. In recent years, he has executed multiple joint ventures in the electric vehicle and battery space and firmly believes in India gaining a leadership position when it comes to e-mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dev Ashish Aneja is an MBA from Nanyang Business School, Singapore and UC Berkeley, USA. Let us have a huge round of applause in welcoming the AVP Strategy and Policy, Automotive and Electric Vehicles, Invest India, Mr. Dev Ashish Aneja.
Hey, hi, good morning everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. So before we go into the small presentation which will cover the sector snapshot, policies and the investment framework for India, I would like to talk about Invest India, the kind of things we do at Invest India, and it might help some of your companies in terms of if you need any support from us, we'll be more than happy to support you in that manner. So Invest India comes under the Ministry of Commerce, fully funded by DPIIT. It's the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency. The kind of mandate we have is prima facie twofold. Firstly, to promote India as an investment destination, which thankfully we don't have to do much these days. Mostly all global companies are absolutely considering India to be one of their investment houses. And second mandate, what we have is to facilitate the investments once these investors sort of decide to come to India. So we as Invest India folks are pretty much working with these companies across the investment life cycle, be it the pre-investment phase, which means sharing of market data, information, case studies, success stories, to help these investors kind of firm up their decision to explore the Indian market. And then we support them during the investment phase, which means if they need any support with respect to location assessment, incentives, negotiations with state governments with respect to those incentives, any approvals or licenses from central government, state government, we do all of those things, policy advocacy support for these global companies, specifically for the EV sector, which is extremely policy dependent. Regulations play a major role. So helping those representations come to the relevant Government of India corridors is what we do for these companies. And once these actual investments have been grounded, the last leg is in terms of their expansion support. If those companies are looking for any sort of support in their expansion phase or any issues which these companies are facing, we generally appoint a relationship manager for most of our global clients, who's the single point of contact for those global companies. So these are the broad set of activities what we at Invest India do. So with this, now I'll move on to a quick presentation. In this calendar year itself, last 10 months, January to October, we have done 700k vehicles, which is 50% of the total cumulative EVs what we have in India. So the market is exponentially growing when it comes to sales. When we talk about investments, last calendar year we saw 6 billion worth of investments getting actualized in the country when it comes to electric vehicles. And with respect to the pipeline of investments, we are witnessing close to $12 billion worth of pipeline, EV investment pipeline, only in lieu of the PLI schemes, PLI Auto and PLI ACC. And of these $12 billion, Invest India is facilitating $5+ billion of those investments, which are spread across EV infra companies, battery manufacturing companies, and vehicle manufacturing companies. Charging points, 1800 plus. When we talk about the split of these vehicles on the road, again more than 90% are two-wheelers and three-wheelers. We all are aware of that. India is a country with light form factor vehicles primarily, and then we have some bit of four-wheelers and buses. In fact, the last month's data, October 2022, we sold about 1.16 lakh electric vehicles of which 1.1 lakh were two-wheelers and three-wheelers cumulatively. Just to give some practical insights in terms of our actual work, when I joined Invest India about 3 years back, when we used to meet global companies, be it vehicle manufacturing companies or component manufacturing companies, it used to be always a question of if. Should we invest into electric vehicle space or not? Will the demand actually take off or not? A lot of talks were happening, lots of similar conferences were happening back in 2018-19 also, but then of course very limited or slightly lesser action on the ground was happening. But I'm extremely happy to share that we have come a long, long way, and today when we engage with the investors, most of them are either inviting us for their groundbreaking ceremonies, or they have set up a new EV manufacturing plant or a component manufacturing plant wherein they invite us for a plant visit, or they have firmed up their expansion plans wherein they need certain support from Invest India when it comes to government interventions. So the kind of conversations we are having with those investors have completely transformed in the last 30 months, which is very, very heartening to see. And as of today, we are selling about one electric vehicle every 40 seconds. If I talk about the run rate for this calendar year, every 40 seconds we are adding a EV, or 1.6 EVs every minute, which is extremely brilliant, which is more than 8x of what it was about 15 months back. I don't think so I need to go into these projection numbers because most of these are extremely, extremely aggressive numbers, and all of us are aware of most of these forecasts. So probably we'll move on. This is a broad snapshot of the policy framework happening in India. Several ministries are involved when it comes to electric vehicles space, MHI being one of the most important ministries, which is responsible for implementing the FAME scheme, which is for demand incentives, and then the PLI schemes for supply side incentives, primarily for manufacturers. FAME plus PLI schemes have a cumulative financial outlay of close to $8 billion. FAME has $1.4 billion, PLI ACC for advanced cell chemistries is over $2.5 billion, and PLI auto and auto components is approximately $3.5 billion. Cumulatively, $7.5 to $8 billion of financial outlay to incentivize electric vehicle manufacturing and adoption from the central government. Then MORTH is, of course, has already come out with the voluntary scrappage policy. Now they are responsible for enhancing the safety of batteries, enhancing the testing protocols. It's already in the works. Ministry of Power has come out with charging guidelines. Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has already modified the building bylaws to enhance the penetration of charging infrastructure and swapping infrastructure within the commercial buildings, residential buildings. Ministry of Finance has done great work when it comes to GST reduction. We have GST ranging from 28% to 45% for IC engine vehicles, depending upon their engine size and the vehicle size. But for electric vehicles, it's a flat 5% GST rate, which is extremely, extremely promising to enhance the adoption. And then Niti Aayog, of course, is working on swapping policy, which all of us are aware of. It should be out very, very soon. So last slide was focusing on the central government initiatives. This slide is talking about the state initiatives, which is over and above what we have from federal government. So as of today, close to 20 states already have their final notified EV policies. And most of these policies are giving incentives either for EV adoption to the end consumers or supply side incentives for EV manufacturers. And these incentives are over and above the central government initiatives, central government incentives. So when we talk about the demand side incentives, these are discounts, road tax benefits, scrappage benefits, SGST reimbursements. And when we talk about the supply side incentives, these can be anything ranging from subsidized land, subsidized energy, capital subsidies, which is immediate subsidy when you actually go and invest into those states. Certain states have their state level PLI schemes, which are, for instance, Karnataka has a 1% state level PLI scheme. 1% of revenue is an immediate cashback to companies investing into Karnataka. And then you have power subsidies and interest-free loans to a certain extent. This is just a snapshot of certain investments which happened in the last calendar year. So when we talk about Mahindra, they recently raised significant amount of sum for their electric vehicle division. Tata Motors raised close to $1 billion in the last calendar year. Suzuki plans to invest close to $2.5 billion for their cell manufacturing and vehicle manufacturing facility. TVS again expanding very, very rapidly within the EV space, and they are building the complete suite of EV product portfolio, be it charging infra or batteries with TVS Lucas, or be it vehicle manufacturing with TVS Motors. Then we have Hyundai, which is extremely aggressively bringing out electric vehicles in the country. Kia recently announced foray of 14 new electric vehicle models by 2027. Then we have companies like Kinetic Green, Petronas, Continental, Toyota. All of these are extremely aggressively expanding into the Indian market. In fact, PLI Auto in itself has 80 plus companies approved with a investment outlay of 42,000 crores, which will be actualized in the next 5 years when it comes to EVs and EV components. This is the last slide, which primarily talks about the startup space, the kind of action which is happening from an investment perspective. Last calendar year, we raised about $1.7 billion from private equity funds and venture capital funds. Most of these funds went into four categories: battery companies, EV charging companies, vehicle manufacturing companies, and of course, mobility as a service category. Within this calendar year, until about September 15th, we have done close to $700 million only from venture capital fund side of things, which is primarily got infused into the likes of Ather Energy, Ola Electric, cumulatively $250 million. Then we have about 80 million coming into Julu, 65 million coming into Euler Motors, and so on and so forth. So we are extremely bullish on India as a country when it comes to electric vehicles, and we are seeing significant ramping up happening with respect to investments, policies, of course, sales, which are exponentially increasing over the years, and new product launches and new investment news are coming up on a daily or a weekly basis, if not more. With this, I'll take a pause, but happy to have any queries, any comments, and we as Invest India will be more than happy to support any one of you in your investment journey. If you have any support requirements, do keep us posted. Thank you.